All right, so today we're diving into something I think a lot of us parents out there can relate to. Homework,
Homework, that magical word.
right? And more specifically, how we can make it less of a
For,
drag for everyone involved, honestly.
for everyone.
Yeah, and hopefully even turn it into a, dare I say, enjoyable learning experience.
So, there's research, there's tips out there.
There is. We've got a really great source today that we've been digging into, all about making homework manageable. So let's jump right in, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first up, this one seems pretty basic, but I think that's why it's so important. Routine, routine, routine. It's like set a consistent time, have a dedicated workspace, but what's the psychology behind why that is so effective?
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It seems so basic, but it's really that consistency that helps a child's brain say, okay, it's time to focus now. It's not time to play. It's not time to do other things. So when you have that consistent time, that same place every day, their brain starts to recognize it. Like anything else, if you're an athlete and you have a pregame ritual, it's that trigger, right? It
Yeah.
minimizes, the resistance.
It's signaling to your brain that it's focus time.
Exactly.
It's not playtime anymore.
Okay.
Okay, so next up, and this is another one that's kind of a classic tip, breaking down those big, huge assignments into, bite-sized, manageable
Well, I was
chunks.
just going to say bite-sized. It just makes so much sense, right?
It does. But tell me, is there like a brain science-y reason why that works so well?
Absolutely. It's not just about making it less overwhelming, although I think that's a huge component, but it's actually how our brains are wired. Think about it. If you had to memorize a really long phone number, you wouldn't just look at it once and expect to remember it, right?
No.
You'd break it up into chunks. You'd do the area code, the prefix, the last four digits, and that's exactly what chunking is. And you can do that with homework, with studying.
So instead of saying, go write your essay, it's, hey, let's just focus on the introduction paragraph for the next 20 minutes.
Right. Or even, let's just brainstorm some ideas.
Yes. And you know what goes hand in hand with this, and we talked about this earlier, but visual timers.
Visual timers are a game changer because you can even break it down further. You can say, okay, we're going to do 25 minutes of focused work, and then we're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll set the timer, and then they can visually see that time going down, and it helps them pace themselves.
It's so true, because I feel like if we just say it, it's like, oh, yeah, time 5 minutes, 5 minutes. But if they can visually see it,
It makes a difference.
it does. It makes a huge difference. Okay, this next tip is big, and I'll be honest, this is one I'm always working on as a parent. It's about finding that balance, right? Like supporting our kids, obviously we want to be there to support them, but also knowing when to step back and let them kind of wrestle with those challenges on their own.
Yeah, because sometimes as a parent, you want to jump in and just fix it for them.
Of course, make it easier.
Make it easier. But the truth is, and this is something I remind parents all the time, it's okay for your kid to struggle. They're going to learn from it. And it builds confidence if they can come to the answer on their own. Even if it takes them a couple of tries to get there, that aha moment is so powerful when they get to experience that versus us just telling them.
Right, and I think that's something important to remember too, is that it's okay if the homework's not perfect. Like the goal is that they're making progress and that they're learning from the mistakes they make along the way.
Exactly. It's all a learning process, right?
Exactly. Okay, speaking of process, let's talk about the whole keeping it positive during homework time.
Yeah.
Because that can be tricky. I think any parent listening right now, we've all been there when it's, the homework battle.
We've all been there. Those nights are real.
They are very real. And so how do we do that? Is it
Yeah.
really just like slapping on a smile and being like, good job, you're doing great? Even when they're,
And you don't feel that way.
yeah, exactly. Like, oh my gosh. But inside I'm like, ah.
Yeah, no, it has to be genuine. And I think one of the best things you can do as a parent is instead of giving those general praises like, oh, you're so smart or you're so good at that, give them very specific praise. So instead of saying, oh, you're so smart, you can say, wow, you really took the time to analyze those historical figures. I'm so impressed with your critical thinking skills. So you're pointing out something very specific they did that you're proud of.
It's that effort-based praise versus just kind of this general,
Exactly.
blanket statement.
And honestly, it helps their self-esteem too, because they're like, oh, they actually are paying attention to what I'm doing.
And they feel seen, which I think is
Yeah.
huge, right? And it makes them feel good about the work they're doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got to talk about celebrating those small wins too, right?
Mhm.
Because I feel like that can be really, really helpful, especially for those bigger assignments.
Absolutely, because if you only celebrate at the very end, it can feel like such a long road to get there. But if you take those small wins and you say, okay, we finished this section, let's take a 5-minute dance break, or let's go get a snack, whatever it is. But little things like that make a huge difference.
It's true. And it kind of breaks it up for everyone, gives everyone a little mental, you know,
Exactly.
uh,
Breather.
it's a refresher.
Yeah.
Okay, last but not least, and this one I think is so important and it kind of ties everything together, is communication with teachers.
Oh, so important.
Why is that so important in this whole homework equation?
Well, and I always tell parents this. Teachers want to know if your child is struggling. And it's not just about, telling on your child. It's about making sure that everybody's on the same page, that we can create the best learning environment for your child. So, communicating with the teacher about what you're seeing at home, what they're seeing in the classroom, it helps everybody understand, the expectations of the assignment, where the challenges might be.
And you might even learn something about their learning style from the teacher that you can then use at home to help support them in a different way.
Right. And I think a lot of times, as parents, we forget, teachers they're the experts in this. They're there to help us as well. So utilizing that relationship is really important.
It's about forming that team.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just you against, this isolated homework.
Team effort, everybody.
I love that. Team effort. So if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed by homework battles, you are definitely not alone. We've all been there. But just remember, try picking maybe just one of these tips and really focusing on it this week. I think you'll be surprised. A small change can really make a big difference. So here's a little something to think about. Until next time, what would it look like if homework time was something that your child actually looked forward to? Something that, gave them a sense of confidence, a sense of enjoyment, not just another thing they have to check off their to-do list.
It's a great goal.
It is. Until next time, happy learning, everybody.